It happens in an elevator. It happens on a first date. It happens when a joke doesn't land. That sudden, crushing weight of absolute silence. Why does a pause in conversation feel physically painful? Why does your brain treat 4 seconds of quiet like a life or death threat? To answer that, we have to look at the machinery inside your head. Machinery that hasn't been updated in about 200,000 years. You see, for our ancestors, noise meant safety. Noise meant the tribe was awake, active, and alive. But silence meant something was stalking you, or worse, silence meant you had been exiled. And in the wild, separation from the tribe wasn't just lonely, it was a guaranteed death sentence. Fast forward to today, that primal circuitry is still active. When a conversation drops dead, your brain doesn't see awkwardness, it sees rejection. Neuroscientists have found that social rejection activates the anterior cingulate cortex. That is the exact same part of the brain that processes physical pain. So when the room goes quiet, you aren't just feeling awkward, you are literally in pain. But here is where it gets weird. Not everyone feels this pain. In Finland, silence is considered a form of respect. It's a way to give the other person space to think. Compare that to New York or Italy. In these cultures, silence is a vacuum that must be filled immediately. We call these low-context cultures. In low-context cultures, we rely on words to carry the meaning. If you aren't talking, you aren't communicating. And if you aren't communicating, something is wrong. But in high-context cultures, communication happens in the unspoken, the posture, the eye contact, the history. Silence isn't empty, it's full of data. In the broadcasting world, they have a strict rule. It's called dead air. If silence lasts more than 4 seconds, listeners assume the station has gone offline. 4 seconds. That seems to be the magic number for humans too. A study by Dutch psychologists confirmed this precise threshold. Before 4 seconds, a pause is thinking. After 4 seconds, the brain's alarm bells start ringing. You start wondering, did I offend them? But there's a deeper, darker reason we hate silence. It's not just about other people. It's about what happens when we are left alone with ourselves. Pascal once said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. We fill our lives with podcasts, music, and notifications. We drown out the internal monologue because, frankly, the internal monologue can be terrifying. Silence forces introspection. It brings up the thoughts we've been repressing, the regrets, the fears, the questions we don't have answers for. So we keep the noise playing. But what if I told you that by avoiding silence, you are actually damaging your brain's ability to focus? We live in the age of information overload. The average person consumes about 34 gigabytes of information every single day. Your brain wasn't designed for this. It has a limited amount of cognitive bandwidth. When you fill every second with noise, you create a bottleneck. This constant input prevents your brain from entering its most important state, the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is what happens when you do nothing. It's your brain's screensaver, but it's not sleeping. It's actually working harder than when you are focused. This is where consolidation happens. This is where memories are stored, and where disparate ideas connect to form new solutions. But when you pull out your phone the second you feel bored, you kill the DMN. You are literally aborting the birth of your next good idea. This is why your best ideas come to you in the shower. It's one of the few places left where you are forced to be separated from your devices. History's greatest minds, Einstein, Darwin, Jobs, they were obsessed with long, silent walks. They didn't view silence as empty, they viewed it as a tool. But there is a limit. In Minnesota, there is a room called an anechoic chamber. It absorbs 99.99% of sound. It is so quiet, you can hear your own blood flow. Most people can't last more than 45 minutes in there. Without external sound to orient us, we lose our balance. We start to hallucinate. So, we need a balance. We need sound to ground us, but we need silence to heal us. Modern life, however, has tipped the scale dangerously. The World Health Organization has actually called noise pollution a modern plague. It raises cortisol, causes heart disease, and lowers IQ in children. Silence is becoming a luxury good. Only the wealthy can afford true quiet. The rest of us are constantly bombarded by the noise of the economy. We buy noise-canceling headphones to buy back a fraction of the peace our ancestors had for free. We are paying for the absence of something. But let's go back to that dinner table. If silence is so good for our brains, why is social silence still so terrifying? Because conversation is a game of tennis. When I hit the ball to you, I expect you to hit it back. When you don't, the game breaks. That break in the rhythm creates a status gap. Whoever speaks first to break the silence is usually the one with lower status in that moment. In negotiations, this is a weapon. It's called the silent treatment. By staying quiet, you force the other person to bid against themselves. Steve Jobs was a master of this. He would often pause for 10 or 20 seconds before answering a question. He didn't fear the void, he controlled it. In the animal kingdom, the alpha doesn't need to make noise to prove authority. Noise is often a sign of anxiety. Silence is a sign of confidence. But there is a flip side. If silence creates anxiety with strangers, it creates the opposite with people we love. It creates intimacy. As Mia Wallace said in Pulp Fiction, that's when you know you found somebody special, when you can just shut the hell up for a minute and comfortably share the silence. This is what psychologists call companionable silence. It triggers the release of oxytocin. It signals to your nervous system, I am safe here. I don't need to perform. The irony is, we spend the early stages of a relationship terrified of silence, filling every gap with chatter, just to reach the point where we never have to talk again. But for many, that silence never comes. We become over-talkers. We babble. We interrupt. We use words as a shield to deflect judgment. Paradoxically, this makes you less likable. The Pratfall Effect suggests vulnerability is attractive, but anxious babbling signals insecurity and low status. Therapists use silence as a tool. By waiting just 3 seconds after a patient finishes speaking, they often get the patient to reveal their deepest breakthrough. Claude Debussy, the famous composer, once said, "The music is not in the notes, but in the silence between. Without the silence, the music is just noise. Without the pause, the punchline of a joke fails. Without the break, the conversation has no rhythm." The Japanese call this ma. It translates to negative space. It is the emptiness that gives the substance its meaning. In design, negative space focuses the eye. In conversation, negative space focuses the mind. It allows the other person to process what you just said. But mastering this space is incredibly hard. In fact, most humans would choose physical pain over pure silence. In a 2014 study at the University of Virginia, participants were left in a room for 15 minutes. No phones, no books, just their thoughts. They were given one option: sit quietly, or push a button to receive a painful electric shock. The results were shocking, literally. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to electrocute themselves rather than sit in silence for 15 minutes. We are so terrified of boredom, so terrified of the void, that we prefer physical suffering over mental stillness. This fear drives our entire economy. Social media, 24-hour news, endless scrolling. It's all a multi-billion-dollar industry designed to save you from silence. But the cost is high. We are losing the ability to self-regulate. We are losing the ability to be alone. So, how do we fix this? How do we reclaim the power of silence without feeling like a social outcast? The solution requires a simple act of courage. It starts with reframing the awkward pause into the power pause. Next time a conversation stalls, resist the urge to fill it. Instead, count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. Treat the conversation like a game of catch. When you catch the ball, hold it, inspect it. Show the other person you are actually considering their words. You will notice something magical happens. People lean in. They value your answer more because the silence signaled that your words are scarce, and therefore, valuable. Second, schedule strategic silence. Just 10 minutes a day without input. No music, no podcasts, no reading. Just you and the wall. Try a silent commute. Let your default mode network reboot. It might be boring at first. It might be anxious. But let the boredom wash over you. Boredom is the precursor to creativity. If you never allow yourself to be bored, you will never allow yourself to be brilliant. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Silence is that space. It is the buffer zone between the world's chaos and your reaction to it. Without silence, you are just a reflex. With silence, you regain your agency. You stop being a slave to the awkwardness. You stop being a slave to the notification. So, stop running from the quiet. Take off the headphones. Put down the phone. Look the void in the eye. You might find that the silence isn't empty after all. You might find that it's actually full of the one thing you've been missing: yourself." We've explored evolution, neuroscience, and philosophy today, but understanding silence is different from practicing it. I have a challenge for you. After this video ends, do not click the next recommended video immediately. Sit in silence for just 60 seconds. Process what you just learned. See how it feels. And if you make it through that 60 seconds without checking your phone, I want you to come back and leave a comment. Comment, "I embrace the silence," below. Let's see how many of us can actually conquer the void. If you want to explore more about the hidden psychology of your daily life, click subscribe. We are building a tribe of deep thinkers here. Until next time, enjoy the quiet.